Okay, I think Jane was next, then this gentleman, then this gentleman.
I mean, I think that's an important question that you're asking, because it's like do we ever get state power? I mean, if we were to have state power, if we were to assume a role of running the state or whatever it is, assuming that that's what we want, what would we do? So that's why an examination of the decline of existing conditions, of the regulatory process, the academic process, is important, because maybe that'll guide us as to how we can get it back or how we can change it and what didn't happen and what didn't. I don't see enough analysis of, on a micro level of what exists that we could actually use to move forward. We don't put that out, and so.
Yes. Yeah, it seems to me coming from a very different direction from your comments, and very much in the spirit of much of the panelists, is that we've seen the bankruptcy of these state aggregate models of development that call themselves socialist, but there is an active movements in many parts of the world to reclaim the commons. I think it's very proper to point to seeing expressions of a future socialist society in embryo in many of these experiments, especially, we talk about Latin America as well as Africa. But I do think that we have to at the same time ask, but relating to actually a debate that C.L.R. James had with Raya Dunayevskaya back in the 50s, when C.L.R. James made the comment that, well, the new society already exists, we merely need to record the facts of its existence. Dunayevskaya, who had earlier worked with James, took issue with this on the grounds that, but these new forms of spontaneous revolt or efforts to reclaim the commons, and we're seeing this in much of the ecological struggles, still operate within a frame of value production, or they're sucked into it. You can be islands in a sea of capitalism and still posit some projection of a notion of an alternative to this society, but you're still an island in the sea of capitalist value production, which grinds you in the direction of having to accommodate yourself in some way to value. So while we need this kind of perspective, it seems to me we also need to supplement it with a different kind of broader systemic critique of capital and capital's value production as a whole, which is not to minimize the importance of these struggles to reclaim the commons, to say they're necessary, but on a certain level, they're not sufficient. And we see this in the ecological movement. Many people that I know have gotten involved in the struggles over solar energy and have done some very, very important work, and now they're just roped up into applying for grants from the government, green technology. They're getting sucked right into the sub-corporate world over all this. I can mention some people's names, some people here may know. It's not just a problem outside the US, it's a problem we're facing directly. So there seems to be a complex it's a difficult thing how to navigate between these two without going back to the old traditional and rejecting what's coming, but at the same time not glorifying without a critical position that really grapples with the contradictions.
Thank you. Richard?
I couldn't agree with Peter more, but I think that what's emerging at this moment and will emerge and will have to emerge if we get to it, there's a hope of getting to it in society, is simultaneously and concurrent movements to recapture the commons and really to defend the commons, to defend what's left of production of use values. And then the second phase, which has to be a worldwide anti-capitalist uprising to end the corporate system and the profit system and change the value and produce use values by people that work in enterprises and factories and all kinds of collectives that are huge and that exist now, that they should take over, like Wolf said, a board of directors, but a board of directors run like the Paris Commune, and not just the workers there, but in connection with the families, the communities, the consumers, and somebody that and other connections that look out for the general welfare of the environment. So it would be local and regional and so on. Federations of federations everywhere. With the internet, this is entirely possible. It can be done in real time. Castoriadis foresaw that as early as '58. And I think that it is possible, but it has to come very, very soon. And your images of the rising of women everywhere, because I think that everybody here has emphasized that as proportion of the labor force, as people who are more connected with use values and the nurturing and the creation of the reproduction of new generations, that the women are the most sensitive to this and historically have been in the forefront of revolution. And hopefully with less of a, how should I say, violent and controlling and hierarchical approach to creating a new society, but with a more horizontal and collective and intuitive so on. And again, the internet by its structure offers an example. It is a net, just like the woven and networked ideas of the women in South America that put their ideas into hangings and things that they made. I'm trying to start a network now, and it will happen very soon, of people like ourselves, of socialist scholars, to not just talk among ourselves, and I think it's very important, but to reach out on every campus in North America. And you'll be hearing, if you want to contact me, you can be part of the development of it, but you'll be hearing about it, and you'll be asked to join a Facebook for us, and volunteer, if you will, to lecture around the country, invited or wherever it's near you or farther, and also to sponsor a left-form club if you were connected with the campus, because I think our next phase is to take back the campus, make a left presence on the campus, and introduce socialist education. We can't go any further until there are socialists. And I think that the campus refuges where we can still discuss things and where people from community movements and organizing in the area can come in and themselves find a sanctuary where they can be listened to with respect.
Okay, thank you, Richard. We've got David, and then Lee, and then Saeed.
I'll be very brief. If you want some links or PDFs of some of the papers that I didn't even have a chance to put them up, please email me. It's on this. Take a sheet. And I want to just respond to the issue of appropriate technology, because appropriate technology, it has to be implemented at every level, from the local to the global. And this has to be a process of a social management and a social control of it. So what is appropriate for a village in terms of even just aluminum lined cardboard that could cook rice without encroaching on the very limited and now depleted trees and brush? That's important. But we also need to have appropriate technology in terms of solar and implement it. We cannot wait to a global socialist or communist society to start building this infrastructure because of what climatology is telling us. We are facing climate catastrophe on a matter, unless we institute a prevention program, in a matter of a decade or so, radical reduction of carbon emissions from fossil fuel. Unless we achieve this, we're going to be in a world that is a much more miserable and dangerous place, and a much more difficult one to climb out of and construct this other world. So within capitalism, even, and maybe this is blasphemy to the Marxists here, and I consider myself a Marxist, is to actually, yes, corporations will build solar energy. Our main obstacle is the military-industrial complex. If we can overcome that, then we open up eco-socialism. And so when Lenin said socialism was electricity in the Soviets, I say communism is solar electricity and the new Soviets that we'll create. The Soviets, that is, control of the economy by it from below. Sorry, that's true.
Thank you.